Two GMC trucks, both lifted 2.5 inches. One cost $100, the other cost $800. 5 years later, the $100 lift has burned through ball joints, tie rod ends, and 2 sets of tires, over $2,000 in damage. The $800 lift has cost $0. Same height, same look, completely different outcome. 3 lift kits will quietly destroy your truck from underneath. 4 will actually make it better. The most popular lift kit in America is number 1 on my worst list. Here's why. The first one is the lift that isn't really a lift. And once you understand what it actually does, you'll never look at one the same way. The body lift. $80 to $300 for a kit of blocks or pucks that go between the body and the frame, 1 to 3 inches of height. Bolts on in an afternoon, looks lifted from across the parking lot. Up close, it's a different story. A body lift doesn't raise the suspension, the frame, the axles, the differential, or the transfer case. It raises the body, the sheet metal, the cab, the bed. Off the frame, that's it. Your ground clearance at the differential is identical to stock. The only thing that changed is where the body sits relative to the frame, and here's what that separation does to everything in between. Your steering shaft now has to bridge a wider gap. Your wiring harnesses are stretched, your radiator hoses are pulled tighter, your shift linkage is extended beyond its designed range. None of these are catastrophic on day one. But over time, stretched components wear faster, connections loosen, and you're chasing problems that didn't exist before the lift. But here's what nobody talks about. That gap between the body and the frame is visible. Daylight between the bed and the frame rail. That gap is the first thing any knowledgeable buyer sees, and it's the first reason they walk away. Body lifts don't add value. They subtract it. You spend $80 to $300 to make your truck look taller without being taller. The frame is at the same height. The differentials are at the same height. The center of gravity is higher on the same suspension. The only thing you gained is a gap that tells everyone exactly what you did. That's not a lift, that's a costume. But this next one is worse, because at least the body lift doesn't pretend to be something it's not. Cheap, no-name coilover and strut kits, the ones on Amazon and eBay for $200 to $500 for a complete set of 4. Brand names you've never heard of. 5-star reviews that read like they were written by the same person. And a price that seems too good to be true. It is. Here's what separates a quality shock from a cheap one. And it's not the metal tube on the outside, it's the valving on the inside. The valving controls how fluid moves through the shock body during compression and rebound. It determines how the shock responds to bumps, dips, body roll, and braking. On a quality shock, that valving is engineered and tested for specific vehicle weights, suspension geometries, and ride heights. On a cheap shock, the valving is generic, designed to fit the price point, not the application. Some are too stiff. The truck rides like a wagon with no springs. Some are too soft. The truck bounces and floats worse than stock. And because the quality is inconsistent, you might get one stiff shock and one soft shock on the same axle. That's not just uncomfortable. That's a handling problem. And it gets worse. The seals on cheap shocks are the first thing to fail. Fluid leaks within 6 months to a year. Once a shock is leaking, it's not damping. It's just a metal tube. On a stock height truck, a blown shock is a comfort issue. On a lifted truck with modified geometry, a blown shock is a safety issue. The truck behaves unpredictably under braking and in corners. The warranty on these kits, if it exists, usually means shipping the part back to China and waiting weeks for a replacement, if you even get one. Here's the comparison that matters. A Bilstein 5100 costs $120 to $150 per shock. Proven valving, monotube design, lifetime warranty. A full set installed runs $800 to $1,400. The cheap kit costs $200 to $500. The difference is $300 to $900. On a $30,000 truck, that's not where you cut corners. If you can't find out who engineered the shock, don't put it on your truck. Now, number 1. The most popular lift kit in America, and the most expensive one on this list, just not in the way you'd expect. The Spacer Leveling Kit without upper control arms. $50 to $200. A puck or spacer that sits on top of your front strut or spring. Raises the front of the truck 2 to 2.5 inches to level it with the rear. Millions sold, installed on more GM trucks than any other lift product on the market. And I need to be clear about something before I go any further. The spacer itself is not a bad product. It does exactly what it says. It raises the front end. The problem is what it doesn't include. And what it doesn't include is what destroys your front end. Here's what happens mechanically. At factory ride height, your upper control arm and ball joint operate near the center of their range of motion. The engineers designed the geometry so that every component works at comfortable angles. Ball joints, tie rod ends, CV axles on four-wheel drive trucks. Everything has room to move. When you add a 2-inch spacer, the spring pushes the knuckle down relative to the upper control arm. The ball joint gets pushed toward the limit of its range. The tie rod end changes angle. On four-wheel drive trucks, the CV axle now operates at a steeper angle, which means the boot flexes more with every rotation and the joint itself takes more stress. None of this breaks on day 1. It breaks on day 300. Ball joints that should last 4 to 5 years wear out in 1 to 2. Tie rod ends loosen in half the time. CV boots crack and leak grease. And your tires, the alignment is off factory spec because the geometry has changed. The inside edge wears faster than the outside. You don't notice until it's too late and you need new tires 20,000 miles early. Let me add up the real cost. Ball joints, $150 to $350 per side. Tie rod ends, $100 to $250 per side. CV axle or boot, $200 to $450 per side. Premature tire replacement, $800 to $1,200. Over 50,000 miles, that spacer kit has cost you $1,500 to $2,500 in accelerated wear. The $50 spacer became a $2,000 lift. Now, here's the nuance that matters. A spacer with aftermarket upper control arms that reposition the ball joint for the new ride height? That's a completely different product. The UCAs correct the geometry. The ball joint goes back to the center of its range. The wear rates return to normal. The spacer isn't the villain. The missing UCAs are. If you already have a spacer lift with stock upper control arms, here's how to check your truck right now. Jack up the front end and grab the wheel at 12 and 6 o'clock. Rock it. Any play or clunking means the ball joint is worn. Then, grab at 9 and 3. Play there means tie rod ends. Check your front tires. If the inside edge is noticeably more worn than the outside, your geometry is off and has been eating your tires. If everything checks out tight, you got lucky. But the clock is ticking. Adding aftermarket UCAs now, $300 to $500, stops the accelerated wear before it starts. The most popular lift kit in America is also the most expensive. You just don't pay for it at the register. You pay for it at the parts counter, one worn component at a time. Those are the 3 lift kits that cost GMC owners the most money for the least result: a costume, a gamble, and a geometry problem. But the next 4 do it right. Real engineering, real results, and every dollar accounted for up front. Quick thing, if this is saving you from a bad lift or helping you choose the right one, hit subscribe. Break down upgrades, maintenance, and ownership every week so you spend smart, not sorry. The lift kit that fixes the biggest problem on the worst list, and it costs $300 to $500 more to do it right. Rough Country and ReadyLIFT leveling kits with upper control arms included. $400 to $800 for the complete package. Spacer or strut extension plus aftermarket UCAs with corrected ball joint geometry. This is the spacer lift done right. The spacer raises the front end the same 2 to 2.5 inches. But the aftermarket upper control arms reposition the ball joint closer to the center of its range at the new height. The geometry is corrected. The ball joints wear at normal rates. The tie rod ends stay within spec. The CV angles stay manageable. Ride quality is similar to stock at the new height. It's not premium, you're still on a spacer, not a performance shock. But it's correct. The suspension works the way it's supposed to work at the new ride height. No accelerated wear, no premature failures, no hidden costs. This is for the owner who wants a level look, doesn't need more than 2.5 inches, and wants to do it right without spending $2,000. The difference between this and a spacer-only kit is $300 to $500. That difference saves you $1,500 to $2,500 in wear over 50,000 miles. That's not an upgrade over the spacer kit. That's the spacer kit finished. This next one doesn't add a spacer at all. It replaces the shock, and that changes everything. Bilstein 5100 adjustable shocks. 120 to 150 per shock for the fronts, 90 to 120 for the rears, $800 to $1,400 for a complete set of 4 installed with alignment. Here's what makes the 5100 different from every spacer kit on the market. The front shocks have an adjustable spring seat built into the shock body. You set the ride height by changing the position of that seat. Multiple positions up to about 2.5 inches depending on your platform. You're not adding a spacer on top of the stock shock. You're replacing the stock shock with one that's designed to operate at the new height. The shock itself is a monotube design with high-pressure nitrogen gas charge. The oil doesn't foam under repeated compression, which is why cheap twin-tube shocks fade on rough roads and Bilsteins don't. The valving is digressive, firm on big impacts, comfortable on small bumps. It's not a stiff ride, it's a controlled ride. And here's the part that separates this from everything else at this price point. The ride quality doesn't just stay the same as stock, it gets better. You're replacing worn factory shocks with performance monotube shocks. The truck rides better, handles better, and brakes more confidently than it did before the lift. No other leveling method at this price can say that. The limitation is height, about 2.5 inches maximum on the front. If you want more, you need a different kit. But for the owner who wants a level stance with genuinely improved ride quality, this is the answer. Bilstein backs them with a limited lifetime warranty. Install is straightforward, an afternoon with basic hand tools. The only lift that makes your truck ride better than stock. That's not marketing, that's engineering. But if you want more than 2.5 inches and you want it done right, this next one is where serious lifts start. BDS and Cognito 4 to 6 inch suspension lift kits, total installed, kit plus labor plus alignment, runs $3,300 to $6,500 depending on brand, lift height, and shock choice. This is a real suspension lift. A complete redesign of your front suspension geometry for the new ride height. These kits include new upper control arms with corrected ball joint angles, new knuckles or spindles that reposition the hub at the correct height, extended brake lines, differential drop brackets if needed, and mounting points for the shocks of your choice, Bilstein, Fox, King, whatever you want to run. BDS has decades of experience on GM truck platforms. Their kits for the GMT 900 and K2XX are proven across thousands of installs. Ride quality with good shocks is excellent. The truck feels planted, controlled, and confident even at 6 inches of lift. Cognito takes it a step further on build quality. Their upper control arms use machined components where others use stamped steel. The ball joints are heavier duty. The overall fit and finish of the kit is premium. You're paying more, but you're getting components that last longer and perform more consistently over high mileage. Here's what the lift height means for tires. A 4-inch lift on a GM truck comfortably fits 33-inch tires without rubbing. A 6-inch lift opens the door to 35-inch tires, which is where the truck starts to look and perform like a true off-road build. If 35s are your goal, you need at least 5 to 6 inches. Anything less, and you're trimming fenders or dealing with rub at full turn. The ride quality on both depends heavily on which shocks you pair with the kit. With Bilstein 5100S, you get a solid, comfortable ride. With Fox 2.0s, you get more performance-oriented damping. The kit is the foundation. The shocks determine the character. Is it expensive? Yes. $3,300 to $6,500 is real money. But here's what you're not paying for. Ball joints every 2 years. Tie rod ends every 18 months. Premature tire wear. Alignment issues, hidden geometry problems. You pay once, it's done right. And the truck runs at the new height the way it was meant to run. Expensive up front, zero hidden costs. That's the trade. Now, number 1. For the owner who wants the absolute best, no compromises, no budget constraints, just the best suspension money can buy. Fox, Icon, and King Performance coilover setups. Total installed with a proper lift kit, $5,000 to $12,000 depending on configuration. This is enthusiast-level suspension. And the difference between this and everything else on the list is adjustability. Fox makes two tiers for GM trucks. The 2.0 Performance Series, 200 to 350 per shock, is the entry point into real performance damping. Quality valving, consistent performance, a significant step up from stock or budget shocks. The 2.5 with reservoir, 500 to 800 per shock, is the premium. The external reservoir holds extra fluid, which keeps temperatures consistent during sustained use. Long descents, rough trails, heavy loads, the 2.5 doesn't fade because it has the fluid capacity to manage heat. Icon takes a vehicle-specific approach. Their CDC valve, compression damping control, lets you adjust compression damping with a knob. Softer for highway cruising, firmer for off-road or heavy loads. The valving is engineered for specific platforms, not generic fitments. You're getting a shock that was designed for your truck's weight, geometry, and intended use. King is the top, race-proven, made in the USA. Their 2.5 coilovers with adjustable compression and rebound give you complete control over how the truck behaves. The ride quality is transformative. The truck feels like a completely different vehicle. And here's what separates all three of these from everything else on this list. They're rebuildable. A Bilstein 5100 wears out after 80 to 100,000 miles, and you replace it. A Fox 2.5, Icon, or King can be rebuilt with new seals, new oil, and revalved to your updated specs for $200 to $400 per shock. You're not buying a consumable part. You're buying a platform that can be maintained and adjusted for the life of the truck. Over 200,000 miles, rebuilding twice costs less than replacing budget shocks 4 times. The price reflects what you're getting. Precision-engineered, adjustable, rebuildable suspension components that will outlast the truck if maintained. Is this for everyone? No. If you're leveling a daily driver, the Bilstein 5100 does the job beautifully for a fraction of the cost. But if you tow heavy, drive off-road regularly, or simply want the best possible ride at any height, this is where the conversation ends. That's not a lift kit. That's a transformation. 3 worst, 4 best. 7 ways to lift a GMC truck. And only 4 of them do it without costing you more than you paid. The pattern is simple. The worst kits ignore geometry. The best kits correct it. A $100 spacer that costs $2,000 in damage. An $800 shock kit that costs $0. The math never changes. If you want to know which upgrades are actually worth putting on your GMC, watch 3 worst and 4 best GMC upgrades you can buy right here. And if you want to make your truck last past 300,000 miles, that one's right here. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.